Kate here from Number One Minecart, and today I'm talking about an analog horror series that I talked about a while ago. That being an analog horror series called Midwest Angelica. If you don't know what Midwest Angelica is a sci-fi horror series in the analog horror genre that takes inspiration from Neon Genesis, Evangelion, and the fellow analog horror series Gemini Home Entertainment. Something to note about Midwest Angelica is the fact that it's quite underrated actually, despite the amount of big creators that have talked about it. So to make sure more people watch this analog horror series, I will be talking about it again, and hopefully my video will inspire others to watch this amazing analog horror series. The first entry in the series is an advertisement for a movie that also happens to be called Midwest Angelica. This movie being described as a sci-fi thriller, there isn't a lot to go on for this episode besides the fact that at the end there is a short segment of a warning broadcast. The second entry in the series is the first canonical tape that introduces us to the organization called Home and an entity labeled as AZ-001. Followed by a scientist explaining that they believe that AZ-001 itself is alive, even though it's technically dead. We also discover the scientist behind the explanation, Dr. Lucas Mitchells, went missing in 1989. After seeing more research footage, we get classified footage of where AZ-001 has landed. The footage shows us the POV of one of the men who were sent out to see AZ-001, followed by the men trying to burn said entity, only for the footage to show one of the men seemingly being melted from the inside, their helmet landing on the ground and the entity itself crawling out of the helmet of the now dead man. And the fact that the series has a lot of decent amount of live action footage, it looks freaking great. The third entry does not have that much. It starts with what seems to be the ending of a commercial for a pizza place, then being interrupted by an emergency announcement that a bunch of areas being affected by an experimental pesticide. Fourth entry starts off by saying that this found footage was recorded at Starfield Ranch. This is followed by what I think might be coordinates, followed by a message explaining that the owner, Avery Jones, woke up to the sound of his dog barking, followed by his son who starts recording. Avery's son is worried about the dog, who is totally okay and not hurt whatsoever. The son is sent to get the shotgun while Avery Jones is assimilated by AZ-001. This is followed by glitched footage and descriptions of what's going on due to some of the footage being corrupted. Eventually the sun makes it inside, which leads to a window shot of AZ-001, which is entirely practical, and this shot goes so hard, oh my god! Anyways, the son goes upstairs for his mom, but considering the sounds we hear, she has already been infected. Eventually we are back outside where we hear the sounds of the son coughing, a sign that he is now infected. Then we see a cow that has been infected by AZ-001, followed by the son collapsing to his knees, and turn back to the cow to see this fucking amazing shot, followed by the sun collapsing and the camera going off. Only for the camera to turn on for what seems to be weeks later, where we see Starfield Ranch has now become a biome from the Nether. The fifth entry is a report about AZ-001 that talks about how it affects cells, and scientists give it the name of Starkill, which in my original video of me talking about Midwest Angelica, I believe that Starkill was a weapon that would be used against AZ-001. Sixth entry starts off with the explanation of a doctor named Andrew Evans returning to a base by helicopter, which is shown with a really cool gridline animation. This is followed by audio where one of the things we hear is him coughing. Now keep in mind that the last time we heard someone coughing in this series, that means the person has been infected by AZ-001. This is then followed by a gridline version of the alpha chunk Dr. Evans was sent to do research on, followed by seeing a picture of Dr. Evans next to it. This is then followed by a small series of events that happened when Dr. Evans went back into the base of operations, showing him acquiring samples of AZ-001, then him getting a container and going into the supply closet to get water, taking longer than normal, a bit suspicious if you ask me. Then he gets water in the container and approaches another doctor named Dr. O'Connor, having a conversation with Dr. Evans, and Dr. Evans giving him a cup of water. After this, the screen pops up some text explaining that Dr. Evans is displaying some unusual behavior. But this, my friends, isn't unusual behavior. This MF is tripping on alien meth. After this, it cuts to a depiction of Dr. Evans trying to get to a storage area, and he's clearly looking for something. But then an unknown third party arrives and ends up killing Dr. Evans. His body is brought in for an autopsy and is followed by, once again, a really cool animation. We see that Dr. Evans' body is filled with holes, and I'm not talking about bullet holes. It's then followed up by the text that explained that Dr. Evans' death is being ruled as an assassination and that Dr. O'Connor vanished after the event, as well as a vial of AZ-001 has gone missing. Something tells me that I think I might know what happened to O'Connor. The 7th entry opens up a schedule of a public access channel, followed by a message explaining a service will be held at a church. Now, if you don't know anything about analog horror, religion can be an element of the horror, and there are even some analog horrors that play around with religion and horror. And as we see later on, religion is definitely a topic that will appear more in the series. Anyways, the message also brings up the fact that the service will be televised for people who can't attend. This is then followed up by a list of people who are helping with the event. You may think that this entry is another one of those entries that is quite short and doesn't have a lot in it. But something to note is one of the people who is on this list is Ray O'Connor. Now, if you remember, Dr. O'Connor was supposedly infected by the deceased Dr. Evans, and Dr. O'Connor vanished along with the vial of AZ-001. And considering what happened in the next entry, entry 8, well... The 8th entry opens up with a message saying that the footage is owned by the Long Pines Police Department. This is followed by words, followed by an old black and white movie that I guess is in the public domain, followed by some missing people posters. After this, we get to hear audio of a caller and a dispatcher. The caller clearly being shaken up as they explain that they think a human sacrifice is going on. This is then followed up by text explaining the following footage was found along with a part of the text being censored. The footage then cuts to nighttime footage of a church, followed by some photos taken by an officer, Andrew Webster. After this, we get a message explaining that following footage is the last known appearance of one Officer Sam Page. He and Officer Andrew Webster split up. A great and fantastic idea in horror that won't end horribly. Officer Sam Page arrives in the forest where he looks up to see a silhouette of something alien-like. Some sort of tower of sorts. We then get to see some pictures that show parts of the tower in question, and you know what? I'm just going to show the footage plus my reaction from 11 months ago. So, after that, we then get text on the screen explaining that Officer Sam Page is fearing distress because he feels like someone is following him, followed by their fears being confirmed when Officer Sam Page makes it out of the forest, only to be killed by a generic spooky mystery man who is only shown as a silhouette number 5968. It's then explained that the obvious is that the unknown man/killer is unknown, and that the investigation is being looked at. The 9th entry opens up with a screen explaining that this tape is classified, followed by another screen that explains the purpose of the tape, which is to explain the infection stage of Starkill. Stage 1 being the sustenance hut, a stage where Starkill absorbs any nearby biomass to sustain itself for its next stage. Stage 2 being intelligence accumulation. This is where Starkill basically targets humans and tries to assimilate them. Stage 3 is self-replication. In this stage, Starkill has enough biomass to form new living beings, acting as some sort of hub, as well as being some sort of form of altars/temples for the smaller Starkill entities. A 4th stage called critical mass has been hypothesized, but we don't get to see it. It's also explained that the researchers have no clue how big it will be in this stage. But we safely get to see a prediction map to see just how fucked we are. Only to see that, ooh yeah, we are fucked with 55 capital Fs, minus everyone in North Dakota for some reason. The 10th entry is an experiment where a man is slowly affected by AZ-001, where he slowly starts to go crazy, and all he can say is Easter, as well as his written down information slowly changing to be one word and one word only. Easter. The 11th entry opens up with a screen showing the logo of home, which seems to be the Tower of Babylon. Now, if you don't know what the Tower of Babylon is, the Tower of Babylon is the story about man trying to become equals with God, and an equivalent of this is the Jurassic Park series, and another part of these Tower of Babylon stories is they usually don't end well for the people who are trying to be equal with God. Anyways, we get camera footage of the lab scene in Entry 7 and what happened to it after the events of Entry 7. The place being in somewhat of a mess and is seemingly abandoned. This is then followed by footage of two doctors, Dr. Robert Spencer and Dr. Gamma Churchill, having a meeting where we get this really cool looking shot. This is then followed by a screen telling us a group called Delta Squad has infiltrated Home HQ, this being followed by some pretty nice gridline animation and the Delta Squad questioning one of the scientists from Home HQ. After the questioning, we get to see the medical report for Dr. Robert Spencer, and we discover that he is in critical condition. This is then followed by footage of Dr. Gamma Churchill and Dr. Robert Spencer in a new meeting. The only difference is that Dr. Robert Spencer is in some sort of pod hooked up to a bunch of wires, and there being no colors in the footage. The 12th entry starts with a home screen showing that this archive footage that belongs to home, followed by one of the images showing the tower that was shown in entry 8. This is then followed by a translation of a conversation between Dr. Mitchell's, Dr. Robert Spencer, and Dr. Gamma Churchill. A little later in this video, we discovered that this takes place before AZ-001 landed. After some images flash, we get to the second archive footage that was made in 1999, taking place where we currently are in the series. This one has footage of the conference about AZ-001 and how it's better than the human race in all ways, along with the showing of their Tower of Babel project that totally will backfire on them. After this, we get to the third archive footage of the video where we are shown some interesting blueprints, along with some video footage of something exploring the abandoned home base that was seen in Entry 7. We see the camera user comes across part of AZ-001, followed by the camera user shooting it to death, which is then followed by another piece of AZ-001 killing the camera user. This is where we discover the person who was exploring the abandoned place was a soldier of home. Archive footage 4 shows the research that was made on AZ-001, and this leads us to discovering that Home is making biomechanical soldiers for their military branch. Then we get to Archive footage 5, where we get another call between Spencer and Churchill, with Churchill explaining that Spencer is going to be given a special ability in the form of controlling the biomechanical soldiers with his mind. Dang, the series has went from a piece of giant corpses landing onto the earth to there is now a man who can control biomechanical soldiers with thy mind. And now the sixth and final archive footage plays, and it gives us a report on how they were able to extract a piece of AZ-001. The 13th entry starts off with a screen that says that this is a Babylon project log that states that the Babylon project will be completed and explains that it will be the reason why Dr. Spencer will become the most powerful being in history. Again, something that totally won't backfire. After this, we are shown footage of the procedure. But just like I thought it would happen, things go wrong and AZ-001 breaks into the chamber and Dr. Spencer's is definitely dead. The two men who were responsible for getting the project to work escaped the tower, showing us more nice live action footage and even getting us another money shot. The footage then cuts to two men arriving at a secure bunker where one of the men gets some technology set up while the other one gets some audio logs ready for the Pentagon. While the other guy gets the audio logs ready, we actually get to hear the voice of AZ-001, which had to be translated to one of those basic 90s AI voices. And the man setting up the technology is trying to figure out what AZ-001 is planning. After something goes wrong, the man who was setting up the technology commands the other man to get something to a car. When the man is outside, we get a scene of some helicopters and a scene of one of the biomechanical soldiers that is obviously being controlled by AZ-001, since Dr. Spencer died. After killing the one biomechanical soldier, the two men get in the car and drive off as gunshots are heard in the background. We then cut the footage of the two men talking and one of them coming up with a plan for the other man to disguise himself as a biomechanical soldier to infiltrate the tower. The video ends with a Babylon project log of the man who came up with the plan, and he goes on a short speech of how God won't be able to save them in the situation. and how it's up to them to save the world. The 14th entry starts with a message that Home HQ has been completely assimilated, followed by the footage of the abandoned place. Now you may be thinking that there is no way that America will recover from this. Well, we didn't cut to this message, and just by looking at it, you all know what's going to happen. So after that beautiful footage, we then get footage of another conference that's being held by one man named General J.C. Pistol, who gives a speech on how they prove that they are stronger than God and how great America is. But because he said some quite blasphemous shit, he is then assassinated by an unknown party, and we actually discover that the person assassinated was actually a death row inmate by the name of Isaac Dune. After this revelation, we are then shown footage of a new character named Admiral Nero, who is the first apostle of Azel. We discover that Admiral Nero required the destruction of Starkill for his plan to go through, and we get another line grid animation of a chunk of the corpse breaking off and getting footage of it landing on Earth. At the end, we get another cool money shot, but also the sad realization that the man from the 13th entry who was sent to infiltrate the Babylon Tower has died, but hey, money shot? This is being followed by the confirmation that Home Delta has been eliminated, followed by what looks like submarine footage of a new chunk that fell on Earth and into the ocean. And the 15th and final entry seems to be a re-upload, because I do remember reacting to this one a while ago. Anyways, this video at first seems to just be stock footage of the outdoors that is being used by a news station, all the while some nice 90s background music plays. But then it gets to a certain point of footage where you realize something is up. The person who seems to be watching the TV pauses the footage and we see something in the distance. Something that is just floating there. Menacingly. So anyways, this is currently Midwest Angelica, the best underrated sci-fi analog horror series out there. Of course the series is far from over, and I will of course do more videos on Midwest Angelica. Anyways, what are your thoughts on Midwest Angelica? Please tell me in the comment section below, because I love the interaction. So anyways, that was it for this video. Make sure you all subscribe and like for more, and I'll see you all later. Peace out, home guards, and goodbye!